Welcome into Straight Up Sports. I am your host, Devin Albertson. Time for some Missouri 8-man football. Hope you guys are having a good Friday. I'm recording this early Friday morning, kind of late Thursday night, to get it out for you guys first thing Friday morning. Hope you guys enjoy the show today. Thank you, everybody, for reached out and asked me if I'm doing the show this week. Yes, I have to share a computer, so I'm getting time on it, iffy here and there. But we are ready to go, and I guess we'll start out talking about last week a little bit. I know I did after the games there on last Friday night of the show. And talked about those games a little bit there, but a review. District 1, Stanberry beat Rockport 84-44. Worth County beat East Atchison 66-14. It'll be Worth County at Stanberry District 1 championship game tonight. District number 3, Pattonsburg beat North Shelby 66-12. Southwest Livingston beat King City 84-62. It'll be Livingston at Pattonsburg in the District 3 championship. On the other side of the bracket, District 2, Mound City beat DeKalb 52-6. For the second time this year, they will host North Andrew, who beat South Holt Nottingham 56-54 in that semifinal game. I was at that game last week. One heck of a football game. Probably the best game I've ever called in 8-man football. That was back and forth, 20-point lead for North Andrew. The Spartans came back, nearly won the game. Had a ball with 3.5 to go at the 3-yard line, threw an interception on a play where the quarterback probably should have just ate it and took a sack. Tried to do a little bit too much. North Andrew gets a win. Escapes at home. They're going to take on Mound City, who has the best defense in the state. We'll get to that game in a minute, but it'll be North Andrew Mound City District 2 championship game. District number 4, Oric. They beat Northwest Hughesville 96-22. The other game, Osceola upset Northern Hardin Central 44-40. It'll be Osceola at Oric for the District 4 championship game. And that kind of sets up what's going to happen in these 4 games this week. We're down to just 8 teams. It's starting to get cold. I think I shared a picture of what the forecast looks like for tonight. I'll be in Mound City. I think it's going to be 20 degrees at kickoff, and it's going to go down from there into the teens. It's going to be cold. I packed layers already to get ready for the game. Should be a fun one, though, back and forth. Mound City and North Andrew in that one. But we'll start the game. I'm not going to. Stanberry hosting Worth County. These two teams played a couple weeks ago. Stanberry did come away with a win in that football game. It was a very well-played football game by both teams. Stanberry, of course, escaped with the victory at home. They'll be at home again this week as they take on Worth County. Of course, that first matchup between the two in week number 9, Stanberry won 30-22. I think they had a defensive stop with about a minute and a half to go to seal that victory. I think in the rematch, though, I'm going to edge towards Worth County. I think the way they played in the first game wasn't indicative of who they really are. And I just think Worth County is a little better football team. I think Stanberry could prove me wrong. I think the style of play these two teams play is maybe skewing my thoughts here a little bit. I think Stanberry played this year at least a style of football that's going to win a lot of games. They're not going to blow a whole bunch of teams who are somewhat close in talent level. They'll let them stick around a little bit. You saw that with East Atchison earlier this year. You saw a little bit with Albany and with North Andrew, especially there, the game that I called with Stanberry. A little bit with King City as well. They kind of let teams stick around a little bit, maybe a little bit longer than they should. Worth County, they just put their foot down and just stomp people out when they had the superior talent there. I'm kind of looking at the stats from the first game. Parman, for Worth County, 21 carries for 117 yards. Alarcon had 15 for 82 with 2 scores. Parman also had 88 yards passing and a touchdown, so that's kind of what they brought to the table on their side. Both those 2 catches for 88 yards for Alarcon and a touchdown were his final numbers, receiving as well, so he had 3 touchdowns on the day for Worth County. I doubt they keep Parman out of the end zone again in this one. For Stanberry, Schieber didn't do a whole lot, 17 for 64, no scores. Did have 1 catch for 10 yards and a touchdown, so he did get in the end zone that way. But running ball was pretty much a Cole Durbin show last time they played. Set 27 carries, 161 yards, 2 scores. Also was 4 of 9 passing for 60 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Cole Durbin really led the Bulldogs to victory last time they played. I think Worth County made a couple adjustments there. I think they're going to try to make Ruben Gage beat him a little more this time. It's been the Durbin and Schieber back and forth show for Stanberry this year. We'll see if they try to make the running back Gage beat him this time around. Worth County is really well coached there with Coach Healy. We'll see what they do. I'm going to go Worth County wins this game, but I think it's going to be one heck of a football game over in Stanberry. So we'll see what kind of happens in that matchup. Then, of course, the winner of that game will take on the winner of Pattonsburg, Southwest Livingston. I've been really high on Pattonsburg. This weather right now has me cooling off a bit on them because it's really hard to throw the ball in 30-degree and 20-degree weather when it's windy. It just is. I just think they're explosive enough on offense to get by Livingston. Livingston's going to ride the shoulders of Mac Anderson as far as he can take him. It worked last week versus King City. They put up 84 points against, I think, a pretty decent King City defense. He had 13 touchdowns in that game. He was absolutely fantastic. I think he had 140-some yards rushing along with 296 yards passing. 8 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing, had also 1 in the return game as well. Wyatt Maddox was his favorite target on the outside, had 5 touchdowns, 155 yards receiving. So they're going to be tough to stop on offense, but I think Pattonsburg, even with the bad weather, I think they're going to beat Livingston. Livingston did beat them last year, I believe, 36-30 in Ludlow. But this game in Pattonsburg, I think Panthers just seem special this year, so I'm going to give them an advantage here to win this game and go on to the state semifinal. Next week, I think they'll take on Worth County. That was my prediction when the bracket started. I'm going to stick with it here, Worth County, Pattonsburg for a rematch in the semifinals. Other side of the bracket, I will be at North Andrew, Mound City. If you see me, I will be, I think, most likely in the stands for this game. It should be very cold. I'll be broadcasting there. I'm going to say hi to me when I'm not on the air. Feel free to come up and talk to me. No problem. I expect a pretty decent football game here. We'll see kind of what happens. I'm not getting my prediction. I did say Mound City was going to get the state championship game before this bracket started, so that's kind of where I'm leaning here. I just think the way these two teams match up a little bit, North Andrew really struggled this year on defense. Their defensive stats for the season, they were the worst ranked pass defense, 213 yards a game. They are 9th against the run, 172 yards, and 18th overall. Only 3 teams worse at yards per game. Only Bramer, Hughesville, and Osceola are worse than them there. They're also allowed they're 10th in scoring defense, allowing about 34 points per game. You compare that versus Mound City, they're first in total in scoring defense, only 8 points a game, which is 11 points better than Worth County, who's second. They are second in passing yards per game allowed, 70, 52 for Osceola, who's first. Mound City, 65 yards rushing. Only one other team is allowing under 100 yards rushing per game. That's Worth County at 98. And then they're first in total defense, 135 yards per game. Next closest is Worth County at 211, then Oric at 251. So they're by far the best defense in 8-man this year. They've proven that from the start of the year till now. I think the most they did allow 4 touchdowns versus Southfield Nolly, but other than that, it's been 2 touchdowns or less, but 3 shutouts. They've been very good defensively this year. I expect that to continue versus North Andrew. North Andrew, they like to run the ball. They are the 3rd-ranked rushing attack, averaging 293 yards per game, only behind Oric and Stanberry in that category, just above North Shelby and Auburn Hardin Central. They will run the ball. They will run the ball a lot. They will run the ball effectively against most teams. The only team I see them struggle in the ball this year was Worth County. That's the only defense that's close to as good as Mound City, so I think they're going to struggle a bit in that category. We'll see if Jaden Baker can air it out a little bit more than they're used to in this game, because I think they're going to need to soften off that Mound City defense that runs a 6-man front. It's really hard to run against with their 4-down linemen and both of their safeties up at the line of scrimmage and their 2 linebackers there behind them. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how North Andrew blocks that and if they can be effective with it. And because Mound City can win one-on-one blocks, TJ Hopkins is an absolute stud there, defensive end. You cannot single block him, and when you try to, he will just run through your offensive line and make a tackle in the backfield. He has 32 tackles for loss on the season for a reason. He is a very good defensive end. We'll see if North Andrew can block him. I think North Andrew's got to pass the ball a little bit here, and if I'm Mound City on offense, they don't throw the ball a whole lot. Both these teams average about 63 yards passing per game. But I think Mound City can find some stuff in the air if they want to. I think the screen game versus North Andrew could be very effective. Last week, the Spartans of South Hope Nolly Holt ran about 3 or 4 screens that were just, first of all, beautifully executed. I said that last week on the show. I think Mound City's going to see that on the tape and try to exploit that as much as possible versus North Andrew, try to give them that screen game a bit. Mount City does have some misdirection passes they like to use in play action. We'll see if they go to it with Landon Papa, their sophomore quarterback. I think Mount City also has some guys in the spots they've kind of been should be playing. I think early in the year they had some guys a little bit out of position that they figured it out now. They had Matthew Papa in the backfield. They moved him back to end. He's been very good there at end with Noah Young. They got Mars and Hopkins in the backfield now with Landon Papa under center. Their offensive line has kind of worked itself out. The D line's worked itself out. I think they have everybody back. They got Dylan George back at linebacker. I think Mountain City is peaking at the right time here. I think should be a fun game here in North Andrew. You still got to stop the rushing attack. I know it's good. I know Mountain City's rush defense is good, but you still got to be able to bring down Logan Hughes and Jaden Baker. Baker, more of a speed guy, more of a shifty dude. Hughes is going to try to run through your soul. So that's what you have to deal with there if you're Mountain City. But I do believe the winner of this game will go to the state championship game. I don't think either one has a trouble with Oric or Osceola in the second round. Going to Oric Osceola, I think Oric wins. I think it's an ugly game. I think Osceola did play really well last week versus Northern Hardin Central, especially offensively, putting up 44 points. Congratulations to the Indians there to get the upset over the Aggies. But I think Oric wins this one, and they will host the winner of Mountain City North Andrew next week in the semifinal on the other side of the bracket. Now, I want to get into this real quick. I know there's some questions of who hosts next week. I did post this earlier in the week. Top side of the bracket, Stanbury, no matter what, will be on the road next week. If they win, they will either play at Pattonsburg or at Southwest Livingston. Worth County, they kind of depend. If Pattonsburg wins, Worth County will be at home. If Livingston wins, Worth County will be on the road. Pattonsburg, they will host Worth. They would host Stanbury, but not Worth County. Livingston would host either. So Livingston wins, they would host a semifinal no matter what. Stanbury travels no matter what. Worth County and Pattonsburg, dependent on the other two teams. The other side of the bracket, Mountain City will travel no matter what. So either they'll make the hour and a half, 2-hour trip to Oric, or the 3 to 4 hour trip to Osceola. Kind of depends on who wins that game. North Andrew would host Oric, but travel to Osceola. Osceola hosts no matter what. Oric, they would host. Mountain City would have to travel to North Andrew. So that's kind of how it works out for the semifinal. Even year means the bottom side of the bracket will host, depending on how many playoff games you have hosted. But no matter what, Osceola will get a playoff game at home if they do win and upset Oric in district number 4. That's kind of where we're at right now. I'll tell you right now, I still think it's Pattonsburg, Mountain City for my state championship game with Pattonsburg coming out on top. But this weather is cooling me off a bit on Pattonsburg with that a little bit. Throwing the ball in this cold is very difficult. Stephen Wilhite, though, is an absolute stud going forward. One thing I did do this week, because I'm an absolute nerd and have no life, I went back to MobileManCoaches.com. They have our top stats for the years from 2007 2017. I added in this year's. They are missing 08 and 2013. Which still pains me 2013 is missing because that was my senior year. And I kind of wanted to see, remember who was really good that year and who put what stats up, but not up there, so we can't look at it. And maybe if they get that fixed, they can add this in here. I did post this on Mo8Man, I believe. Also, my Twitter account at Devin Albertson. Stephen Wilhite right now is third in the all-time recorded history of passing yards in 8-man. Kobe Reynolds from Northwest Norway holds the first and second place. Wilhite's about 800 yards away from first place and about 600 yards away from second place, so he has a chance to elevate into a top 2 performance of all-time in 8-man. Also, Drew Quinlan this year, he's going to finish 5th all-time with 2,800 yards, with just 3 yards behind Cole Dilly from last year from Pattonsburg for 4th. He also threw 49 touchdowns this year, which is 4th all-time, only behind Wilhite and Reynolds twice. So Drew Quinlan has a top 5 passing performance in 8-man history, and he still didn't get first or second team all-conference. Still baffles me a little bit there. Disappointed a little bit in the coaches in 275 for not getting that one right. We have a historic performance like that. You saw Wilhite and Pattonsburg, first team all-conference. He's going to be first team all-state. No-brainer. Quinlan didn't get first or second team. He was a vote off a second-team quarterback, losing out to McNamee from East Atchison, who I think is a really good quarterback. I think they kind of did the all-purpose back thing a little bit wrong, in my opinion, but that's kind of the way things go. Also this year, Breckenridge finished 8th in passing all-time with 2,089 yards, just passing Jace Hughes from Rockport from a couple years ago, and Connor Teichner from Northwest Hughesville finished 10th with 2,078 yards for the season. So 4 guys in the top 10 in passing this year: Will Height 3, Quinlan 5, Breckenridge 8, and Teichner 10. Passing touchdowns, Will Height tied for the state record with Reynolds at 61, 1 touchdown away from breaking that one. Quinlan 4th at 49 touchdowns. Teichner is 9th at 36, and Breckenridge at 34 again for the second year in a row, tied for 10th with Bailey Baker from last year, Powelson from 2016, and Hughes from 2016. Recent history, Dilly and Powelson were 5th and 6th last year, 46 and 40 respectively. Reynolds threw 61 and 58 in 2015 and 2014. So those were those. Rushing, there's no one really that close for yardage, I guess. If McAfee, Schieber, and Anderson, if one of them has a really good game, they can get up there right now. McAfee's at 1,700 yards with Schieber also 1,700. Anderson at 1,650 pretty much. The 10th and there is 1,890. So you're looking at someone like Anderson and Schieber have to win this week, have a lot of yards, and play again next week to get into that top 10. And the list in this top 10 is the who's who's of great running backs: Lake Crow, Eli Molik, Lake Crow, Ryler Estenbaum, Dylan Haney, Tevin Cameron from last year from Worth County, Ethan Crow from Livingston, Lucas Schwang from Mountain City in 2011. He was an absolute stud. Brevin Ross, Eli Molik. There's a lot of good running backs in there. 8 guys that I've seen rush for over 2,000 yards according to the histories, and 2 of them rushed over 2,300 yards. Eli Molik in 2011 was straight up unstoppable. So probably the best running back I've ever seen. He also 52 touchdowns rushing. The rushing touchdown guys, you have Eli Molik, Lake Crow, Tevin Cameron last year, Ethan Crow, Dylan Haney from Livingston, Kyler Hyatt from 07 from Worth County, Brevin Ross from Worth County, Lucas Schwang from Mountain City, Eli Molik again from Worth County. So you had a lot of great guys in there. Receiving, you had Trevor Meyer from Northwest Nottoway, Caleb Patterson, North Andrew, Jacob Cordell from Northwest Nottoway. Rylan Chamberlain this year from Northwest Hughesville finished 4th in state history with just under 1,300 yards. Cordell was at 1,500 yards for 3rd, so he's a little bit off in the top 3, but he was right there. Mitchell Officer from North Andrew from 2015. Eric Ottman from South Nolly Holt this year finished 6th. Cameron Jones still playing right now at 7th. He has a chance to jump to about the top 4, maybe higher depending on how far Pattonsburg goes. Dakota Smizer at 8th. Tyler Jones from Rockport at 9. Then Caleb Patterson again at 10 in 2016. Receiving touchdowns, it goes Cordell from Northwest Nottoway, Officer and Patterson from North Andrew, Meyer from Northwest Nottoway, Patterson again from North Andrew, Tyler Jones from Rockport, Ottman from South Nolly Holt, Chamberlain from Hughesville, Justin Lewis from Livingston back in 2011, Derek Goff from North Andrew 2014, and then Cameron Jones of this year again with 19. So anywhere from 33 to 19 receiving touchdowns. And again, this is missing the 2008 and the 2013 seasons. So not quite, and also missing from 88 to 06. But I haven't found anything that has those stats anywhere. So maybe we can get a complete list of those, but probably not. And I did have a question that I was asked last Friday, but I didn't see it until after the show was over. How do I think this group of 8-man schools would do against Class 1 11-man? I think the talent level is there to compete. The only thing I question with 8-man playing 11-man schools is definitely the depth. Could the depth of these teams match up? I don't think anybody beats Valley Catholic, who's been really good in Class 1, but some of the schools from around here that I've kind of seen, like Midbuck and Wellington Napoleon, I think a team like Worth County and Stanberry and maybe Mountain City could compete with those teams. A Penny, who's down a bit this year, and Marceline, they could probably compete with those teams. I think they would play well with a South Shelby. So I haven't really got to see a lot of Class 1 schools play. I think the biggest thing would be depth. So a team I think is pretty good in King City probably wouldn't be able to because they only go about 8, 9 deep. And we had to put 10, 11 out there. That's when they would really start hurting them. I think a team like Mound City, who's very deep, could definitely play 11-man and play it well. I think Southwold Nollyholt could do a decent job. I don't know how many teams they would beat, but they could compete well and have enough depth to do it. Stanbury has enough depth right now. Worth County, I think they're close as well. I don't know how deep Pattonsburg roster is. I haven't seen them live yet. I think the top talent that are on some of these teams can compete with 11-man schools. It just, could they survive the whole year playing 11-man is a real question, and why they're all 8-man right now. Because the talent level is there to compete with some bigger schools. It's just they don't have the depth at 8, 9, 10, 11 to compete with the teams that are in 11-man right now. I think that's the biggest problem right there. And why you're seeing some 11-man schools drop down to 8-man, because they know they have the talent to compete at the top of the roster, but the bottom of the roster just isn't quite stacking up to it to the level it needs to. So, and we'll never know because you can't play that way. I think all these schools, of course, have better chances at 8-man if one of these Class 1 schools drop down compared to trying to go up and playing in Class 1, because then you get the cream of the crop versus cream of the crop, top 8 guys for each team on the field. And I think then the 8-man schools will take advantage a little bit there, and their top guys stick out a little bit more. You have an Anderson from Livingston sticks out more in an 8-man game than he would in an 11-man game, because just the way it works out. I think Will Height from Pattonsburg would stand out a lot more in 8-man than he would 11-man. I think there were 2 guys that would still be pretty good in 11-man. They just make more of an impact. Kind of like basketball, one guy can make a bigger impact with 5 guys in the court compared to football when there's 8 to 11. So it just kind of depends on that as well. But I think these teams could compete a little bit there at the next level. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Shout out to the guys. Last week had great games. Passing, top 5 in passing yards: Quinlan, Breckenridge, Anderson, Wilhite, Burke. Passing touchdowns, you had, of course, Anderson, Breckenridge, Wilhite, Quinlan, and then Gurin. I'm probably mispronouncing from Osceola. All had great games. 8 for Anderson, 5 apiece for Breckenridge, Wilhite, and Quinlan, and then 4 for the guy from Osceola. Rushing yards, 5 guys over 200, 1 guy over 300 with Kyler Hughes from Northmore Hardin Central, and 250 was McAfee from Oric. Hughes, Schieber, and Parman all there over 200 yards as well. Big matchups this week with Hughes having to take on Mountain City's defense and Schieber and Parman going head-to-head. Again, Cole Durbin also had 150 yards rushing as well. Durbin, 5 touchdowns. Hughes for Northmore Hardin Central and North Andrew. 2 kids from Oric, Anderson from Livingston, and Parman from Worth County all had 4 rushing touchdowns. So a big week in offensive stats this last week. You saw a lot of points in general. 84 to 44, 66 to 14, 66 to 12, 84 to 62, 56 54, 92 to 22, 96 22, 44 40. You just saw a lot of points in these games. The only game that really didn't have a high scoring game was Mountain City DeKalb. It was over at halftime, 52 to 6. All these other games you were combining for at least 80 points. Some of them, Livingston, King City, they combined for 146. That's a lot of points. I think if the weather was better, you'd see it again from Pattonsburg, Livingston, getting a lot more points. And the weather's going to keep them down a bit this week. I think defense is going to run king this week. So I'm taking Worth County, Pattonsburg. I'm at Mound State, North Andrew. And I think Oric does beat Osceola because Osceola's defense is not good. Real quick on Osceola. So I wanted to kind of get to them a little bit. They're okay. They're 18th in points, allowing 50 points per game. Compared to Oric, who's allowing about 24. Passing defense, Osceola is first in that, but they face teams who don't really throw the ball. Oric is 9th. Rushing defense, Oric is 3rd, 133 yards a game. Osceola is allowing 391 yards rushing per game. They're last in total defense, 443 yards per game. Oric is 3rd at 251 per game. So it's kind of a breakdown there. Osceola, in the games that I have for the other team for stats, there's 5 of them. They've allowed 426 yards, 454, 438, 240, 224, and then 414. That's a lot of yards to be allowing on the ground. I think Oric gets over 400 yards again for them. So I think Oric does beat Osceola. But it could be a higher scoring game than some are thinking down there. But I don't think it really matters who wins that game. It's just where the District 2 champ either has to travel or if North Andrew hosts next week. So that's where that's going to be. I think if you're Mound City, you'd rather have Oric win, even though they're probably the better team. You still beat either one of these teams fairly easily, and it's a shorter trip to Oric compared to a 4-hour trip to Osceola. Actually, look for Mountain City. It's actually closer to go to Osceola, Iowa than Osceola, Missouri. That's what I have for the show this week. Make sure you guys tune in on Friday night, 95.9 KNIM. We'll go live at 6:45 or so there from Mound City. I'll be bundled up and trying to stay warm there in the bleachers. Say hi to me at halftime or end of the quarter. If you don't see me talking on my headset, come up and say hi. I do appreciate all the kind words that everybody kind of says to me about doing this and kind of showing some light on 8-man. I appreciate you. So please do share the show. Have any questions, definitely ask me. I appreciate all the support. I'm just doing this to kind of give 8-man some more buzz on Twitter and just kind of there in the media because these kids deserve to get a little bit of shine going forward. There's a lot of really talented kids. Just position players for Stanbury. You have Schieber and Durbin, both really good football players. Worth County, Caleb Harmon's a very good football player. Will Height and all the receivers in Pattonsburg. Anderson with Livingston. At Mound City, you'll have T.J. Hopkins, who's an absolute stud. Dylan Mars is a very good football player. North Andrew between Hughes and Baker. Wilma's also a really good football player on the outside. Oric, you have McAfee and Buchanan. Osceola has a Tyler Urine kid. There's so much talent in this district semifinals, the district championship games here. Even though I think District 4 is very weak, they do have a couple of kids who are decent on those schools and have led them this far. And congratulations to them down south. We're seeing more 11-man schools drop down. We'll see this month who is actually going to drop down, who is the official people returning to 8-man or going 8-man this off season. But enjoy Friday night. Stay warm, everybody. Safe travels to Stanbury, Pattonsburg, Mound City, and Oric. Everybody have a great day. Congratulations to all the kids who got all 275, all GRC, and all CRC. We'll see what happens with the all-state teams. Everybody have a good Friday night. Stay warm, stay safe. Devin Albertson out for Straight Up Sports, Mo 8-Man Football.